Perfect, perfect. So hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is our third week of PPM Summer Talks. I'm really pleased to welcome some new names and some familiar names here today. It's Tuesday, and we've got a special speaker today. He's actually physically very close to me, probably the closest of all. He's in Prague, Czech Republic. I'm with the headquarters of Y Summits in Bratislava. So hello, Michal. Thank you again for accepting the invite and for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will tell you all a little bit about Michal, and I will give him a chance to introduce him to all of us and to the audience. But why are we here? This is the third week of PPM Summer Talks, and it's a online webinar conference happening for a consecutive 5 weeks in a row. This is the third week, as I said. It's the first session of the third week with Michal. And we are going to, so we've got still 3 weeks running, so feel free to invite your peers and colleagues to join us. We've had many new names registering and appearing, so it makes me really happy that people are interested and are joining us, and the feedback has been great. So it makes me really happy because we are doing something great for the community of pharma professionals. This is all happening through our PPM workout platform, and as I said, before many times, and I will repeat myself, it is a wonderful, wonderful place for connecting pharmaceutical professionals and experts. So it's a tool for everyone to really just get inspired, connected, and learn from one another. And that's why we really wanted to bring a conference like this online together to you from your homes. And I know everyone is really tired of all the virtual conferences and meetings. But because we're only having one online webinar a day, we thought, it might be a bit exciting, and we always try to keep it short and sweet. So that's me keeping it short and sweet. And I would like to give just, a little bit, Michal, if you'd like to just say a few words about yourself before I read your LinkedIn profile.
Of course, I can already share my screen actually. So just hold on a second.
You've got something written about yourself there as well.
I do actually, yeah. I have
please feel free to introduce yourself this way as well. That's amazing.
All right, thank you very much. So let's get started. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. It is my great pleasure to share with you the presentation on launch management in emerging markets. So let me just put it on the full screen. Can you see my screen well?
Yes, I can, and probably everyone else can, and we can see you as well. So yeah, feel free, the platform is yours. I'm going to ask you some embarrassing questions afterwards. So feel free, and thank you again for accepting the invite, for being here with us, and thanks to everyone for really finding the time and joining us to listen to this wonderful talk. So thank you again.
Of course, thank you, my pleasure. All right, so what are we going to cover during today's presentation? So I will first of all just say a few words about myself in the introduction. Then I actually was thinking of reducing the scope of the emerging countries to Middle East and Russia, because these are the two regions where I would say have the most experience in. So I will focus first on Middle East, speak about, let's say, GCC countries, Turkey. I will share one little example of our Patex launch in United Arab Emirates. And then I will also touch upon the global GX customization projects for Russia in terms of local bioequivalence study requirements, and where we actually were facing some of the risks, or actually we even faced the delays themselves for Russia. At the end, of course, and please, Katie, give me a heads up when I am over time, just to have enough time for the Q&A.
Of course, right. Thank you. And I actually wanted to pop in and say, if anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to write it in the chat, and I will nicely interrupt Michal, and I will ask him the question. So feel free, and at the end there will be a Q&A discussion, and feel free to participate, unmute yourself at the end as well. So I'm here, and I will be asking questions as well.
Sure, I will be happy to do so. All right, so yeah, maybe just to give you a heads up before we start. So I have a little puppy here next to me. So if I suddenly just shout out something in my own language, it's not because of you, but it's because she's probably too playful, and I just need to calm her down. Yeah, so just to.
No problem. I think everyone loves doggies and cats, so you're welcome here.
I will try to limit her presence in my presentation as much as I can. Okay.
Okay.
So now a few words about myself. So I work as a global project manager in Sanofi. I'm part of global medical affairs in a general medicine global business unit. I've been doing this job for about 4 years. My role is basically to lead international cross-functional global project teams for in-house development projects. Typically, they involve some or include preclinical phase 1 to phase 3 clinical trials, and mainly it's in cardiovascular therapeutic area. And when it comes to, let's say, the type of project, so I'm pretty much involved in innovative fixed dose combinations or API programs for biologics, medical devices, and all of that for core assets of Sanofi, so for the well-established products of Sanofi. I also was responsible for generic projects, but as some of you may know, Sanofi divested generic part of business in Europe, and we are not heavily investing into new generics outside of Europe. So actually, my presentation will mostly concern generics because there I still believe have something to share. But now I'm predominantly involved in more innovative projects within Sanofi. So just to let you know, yeah, as far as the geographical scope concerns, we do projects both for major markets, Europe, US, Canada, Australia, and emerging markets. So CIS, Middle East, Africa, Asia, China, etc. Prior to my current role, I was part of commercial. There, I was more focusing on the commercial aspects of the launch preparation. So this is what I will also talk about during my presentation. And prior to that, I was working in global regulatory affairs. So that's why I'm able to share some of the regulatory challenges in these interesting regions like Middle East. So this is just from my side. Yeah, and also in terms of education, so I'm a pharmacist, doctor of pharmacy and PhD in biomedicine, and I'm certified project management professional. Okay, so let's get right to the presentation. So we'll start with GCC, so Gulf Cooperation Council, so Gulf countries. Just a quick introduction, you know, the generic companies have increasingly penetrated local markets in the past years, and especially the governments in Saudi, United Arab Emirates, Oman, they have raised some campaign efforts to boost this awareness of generic substitution, because even these countries, which are pretty rich, as we all know, they realize that they need to also, let's say, give more chance to generics, because they will need to find places to do some savings as well. So it's in their interest to support these campaigns. And there are opportunities like favoring economic environment, growing population, just like anywhere else, increasing government's expenditures, new health insurance policies, etc. For you who have been to Dubai or other countries, you know that these people love sweets. So low carb diets are not yet still so much trendy in these countries. So there's even the highest prevalence of diabetes in the world. So especially for the diabetes portfolio, there are some opportunities as well. And what is also typical, but this is, I would say, common for all emerging countries, is that the local governments want to, let's say, prioritize the local manufacturing, yeah, to support their local industry. I think this is obvious. And I have here one example that, for instance, in 18, so a few years back, also the Department of Health expected in Abu Dhabi to offer GX medicine to the patients, as they are way cheaper than the original products. In the past, it wasn't. So this is something which we think is normal in Europe, US. However, in the past, generics didn't have the best reputation. There were some concerns over quality, etc. It has much improved, and they are now pretty much supporting all these efforts in, let's say, promoting generics. So let's get to the regulatory requirements in Middle East and Turkey, because these are pretty special, I would say. For those who are working on the global projects, you know, typically generic launches in Middle East are usually not perceived as something where you would need some special customization activities in terms of development of the dossier, special data, and they typically take it as a simply territory extension of the dossier, which you first, you know, register and then launch the product in US or Europe, and then you go to these countries. But there are a lot of complexities and things that you should take into account well in advance. And I will talk about it on the upcoming slides. Of course, what this region is also known about is that it's rather politically unstable. In some countries like Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, of course. So this also impacts the pharmaceutical industry, just like any other area. So if we start, for instance, with Turkey, so for those who are involved in Turkish launches, so you know that local manufacturing is a big advantage to ensure the launch in time. The Ministry of Health in Turkey, they have even set out some prioritization criteria where they try to give a priority to products who are first generic, of course, so those who submit the registration for the first time, also the biosimilar products, also production of imported medicine in Turkey, local manufacturing, and especially if you export to other countries, this is perceived very well by Turkey. So in Sanofi, in Turkey, we typically try to go for local manufacturing unless there is no other way. For Iraq, this I must say has been the case about 2 years back, where MOH, Minister of Health, issued a statement to stop importation of selected generics to support local industry. But of course, they are not able to cover their own the whole demand for the country on their own. So imported drugs are still allowed, but you can see these tendencies that the more you can support local manufacturing, the better. So they're using it. In United Arab Emirates, so again, it's information like 2 years old, where local manufacturing was still perceived in case the product was at least secondary packed, went through quality check and release. So you could have still, let's say, white boxes like the bulk and primary packaging done outside of United Arab Emirates and imported to UAE and just do the remaining steps of the manufacturing flow, and you will still be considered as local manufacturer. Yeah, this is important. Typically, you have faster registration timelines. You can have preferential price, even though this is also a little bit changing. Yeah, there are some tendencies. They would also prohibit importation of GX, which are already locally produced, because of course they don't have such a big desire of having too many generics. You have better bidding conditions for tenders, and this adaptable regulatory requirements is a diplomatic way of saying that you could have, let's say, somehow better attitude or approach from the Ministry of Health, and you can negotiate a lot, actually. Yeah, so this is a great advantage. What they do not like is basically to have a complicated relationships between all involved parties in the manufacturing. Just to give you an example, we were trying to launch products where the manufacturing site was located in Cyprus. It was a licensing product for us, so the licensor was, let's say, based in Greece. We were based as a headquarters in Czech Republic and Sanofi in France. And the product was only registered in Cyprus, but it was not launched. It was launched in other countries in Europe, like UK. So we actually had the CPP, and the CPP is the key document, which is issued by the local health authority to be able to register this product in emerging countries like UAE. And this CPP was then from UK. So the marketing authorization holder was Sanofi affiliate in UK, and then you have even the product which is being registered in Emirates, distributed by a local distributor. So you have so many parties involved in this chain, and this is sometimes super complicated to explain to local agencies, because what they are used to is to have just a locally produced product from either API or bulk till release with one distributor, and they don't want to have 6 or 7 different entities. So then it's not easy to explain, and it delays the registration. So just to give you a heads up on that. In Saudi Arabia, local manufacturing is preferred. I think it's not still mandatory. At least it wasn't a long time back. And if you do only secondary packaging in Saudi and QC release, you need to submit also a commitment that you will, let's say, transition to a full manufacturing after 2 years from launch. This is a mandatory requirement in Saudi. And Saudi typically have the most strict site registration requirements in Middle East. I will not speak about it in detail, but just to inform you. And now about the specifics and challenges for Middle East. So as you know, because of the culture and religious beliefs, there are some specifics related to Arabic population, Muslim population. So what you need to, let's say, what you need to think about in advance is to use only excipients or material which are pork-free. So no component of the finished product can be of pork origin. This is important. However, speaking also on behalf of Sanofi, as you may know, product Clexane, anticoagulant, is basically produced from porcine heparin. And since there is no other alternative on the market, and this is really a life-saving agent, of course, the authorities can close their eyes, because if you don't have any other alternative, and this is actually our key country, United Arab Emirates and Saudi, you actually get the permission. But if you are generic, they are very strict, and typically they would not allow any pork, let's say, component in the finished product. Similarly, for alcohol, actually, you need to submit the alcohol-free declaration. So if there's, for instance, ethanol being used during the manufacturing process, then you need to sign a statement that it is being evaporated during the process, and it is really unacceptable to have ethanol content in the finished product certificate of analysis. They're really checking it, and this could really lead to rejection of your application. So important to watch out. Some countries, they also require halal certification. For instance, in Iraq and Kurdistan, especially for capsules, you will need to ensure that you will halal certify gelatin capsules. So typically this material is also like more costly. And if you are having, let's say, a global project, or let's say more other countries are, let's say, being launched even outside of Middle East, like in Europe, what we typically did is that we even switched the whole production for all countries to these halal capsules, because it was basically easier for us. So if Iraq is an important country for you in terms of sales, good to think about it in advance. And here, this last piece actually should be revisited, because Teva-free declaration was due to complicated relationships with Israel. As you know, Israel and the rest of the Arabic world have complicated relationships, but in recent years, it has significantly improved with UAE, for instance. So probably now you would have some exemption, even if you have used Teva. In the past, if you just had a single word Teva in your thousands of pages dossier, it led to rejection. They were very strict. Now I think it's going to be much easier. For instance, if you use API source from Teva, it shouldn't be such a big deal. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, it has not prohibited nor not accepted. So it's not explicitly stated what's their stance on this, but just to be careful about Israel. This is more for a, let's say, regulatory topic, more of a regulatory topic. So European Drug Master File, it concerns API documentation. So it's good to know this in advance, so that CEP, certificate of suitability, may not be accepted. So just to give you a heads up here. Imprint and, imprint, there is a typo, and embossment in UAE and Saudi, they typically want to distinguish the strands. If you have like 20, 40, 80 mg, they want to have embossed the number on it, or some distinguishing mark. So it's good to think of it in advance as far as the solid dosage form concerns. The color differentiation is not acceptable. They really insist on this imprint or embossment, either for capsules or for tablets. And for instance, so what was also valid for Lebanon is that they had this box of 5 generics. If there is more than 5 generics for the same molecule under evaluation at MOH, then other registration applications were rejected. They basically wanted to limit the number of generics already in the country, and also sometimes you had to conduct local analysis, which was then outsourced to some external laboratories, and even these fees were pretty high. So just to inform you about this, this concerns Lebanon. So these were, yeah, there's just one more slide on that. In countries like Saudi, I don't know if it's already now in place, but there were some tendencies also to require zone 4A stability data on API, not only on finished product, but also on API. So typically, Saudi FDA publish guidelines, but it's not like in Europe that it's immediately being implemented by manufacturers, but there was some time to adopt. So this is something which could be pretty much valid soon for Saudi. And if you conduct a bioequivalence study, in some cases, they are required to be certified by the CROs conducting studies by GCC, so by the health authority in Middle East. So if it has not been inspected by GCC, the applicants will have to wait until the CRO is listed as approved by GCC auditors. But sometimes you can get some waiver in case the CRO was inspected by some really respectful authorities like IMA or FDA. So it's not something written into stone, but if you are using some unknown CROs, you may be expecting inspection from GCC. Yeah, and this is very, let's say, very live or ongoing process for new regulations to come in this region. So it's been changing pretty much often, and they expect to have some harmonization on pricing throughout the region, which could also change a lot of things. So that's maybe the last piece of information here. They're of course looking up to European legislation and guidelines, so they're sometimes really copying what's happening in Europe, but they still sometimes keep also their own local specifics. Okay. So what I can mention here, I don't want to spend too much time here, but since it really led to a quite significant delay in our launches, let me share some information on this with this regard also with you. I don't know if you're familiar with super legalization, what it is, but this is a, let's say, authentication of a public document which is issued by regulatory agencies. It's like an administrative, let's say, process, which you wonder why is it still necessary in 21st century, but especially in emerging countries, it is still necessary. And once this document is published, for instance, by Czech Health Authority, you need to go to Ministry of Justice and to Ministry of Foreign Affairs to get a stamp that this really document was issued by the relevant authority, and then you go to local embassy. Okay. In some cases, you can also be expecting pretty high fees for this administration act. It can be even up to 1,000 euro per each page. So if you have a lot of pages, it can also go high, these costs. And I can share with you one case study for the registration and launch in Bangladesh, in Pakistan. So we are supposed to do this super legalization of CPP, of this document, which was issued by Cypriot, so in Cyprus, authority of the MOH. And we wanted to have this document used for the registration in Bangladesh and Pakistan. So what you would typically need to do is to go to a local embassy, Bangladeshi or Pakistani, but in the Cyprus. But the problem is that these two were not located. It's a small island, so not all embassies are based there. So we were actually told that we have two options, because there was no Bangladeshi embassy in Cyprus. It was an oncological generic product, by the way. We were told that we can go either to Turkey or to UAE, where they would do this legalization on behalf of Cyprus. But the problem is that when we actually asked the Turkish embassy, so the embassy located in Turkey, we were told that we need to explain that Our company, Sanofi, is based in the north of Cyprus. And here, I don't know if someone has something to do with Turkey. It's a little bit politically a problematic topic. Our Sanofi affiliates located in Cyprus were very upset by the statement because they believe that the north of Cyprus is occupied by Turkish people. So actually, they said that they will never ever issue a statement that company is based in North Cyprus because it simply does not exist. So I made my colleagues mad, and it just didn't work. And the second option was going to UAE, to Abu Dhabi, where also these fees were extremely expensive. So it would also take a lot of time. I was considering to go to Abu Dhabi. It's really delayed us for a couple of months until it was figured out. And same for Pakistani embassy in Cyprus, it wasn't there. So we were able either to go to Turkey. It was not located in the same town like where Sanofi was based, or it could have been done in Lebanon. Don't ask me why it is in Lebanon. It's just some rule in foreign affairs that for Pakistan we were supposed to go to Lebanon. And it was internally very complicated to find a vendor or someone who would actually manage this and do it in Lebanon. So this is another aspect which you would never think of. It's not like a high-tech development activity, like you need special resolution profile, special studies for Middle East, but this can sometimes take several months, which for generics, of course, is not desirable. So that was not easy. And now I'm looking at the time, so I still have some minutes left. So for the case study I spoke about in United Arab Emirates when launching a product, it was a Patex launch. Let me explain what happened. So we were supposed to launch a GX product where we followed this local manufacturing requirement, meaning that we were doing secondary packaging, QC, and release in Dubai, in United Arab Emirates. And the previous steps, which were bulk production of bulk and primary packaging in the white boxes, were imported from Czech Republic, where the product was produced. What is also interesting to learn is that in UAE, the data and market exclusivity can be sometimes subject to negotiations, where in the rest of the world, it's just something which you cannot negotiate. There you have the chance if you have a very good relationship with the health authority. And actually what happened to us is that for this highly expected product, we received the permission to commercialize the product even before getting the marketing authorization approval. And it was just before when the pricing certificate was issued. That's typically the first step. They issue a price, and sometime after you will get the MA approval. And we were allowed to commercialize the product right after getting the price certificate. And since we knew they were competitors almost on the same, like trying to target the same launch date, we knew that we don't have too much time. But what we realized from, let's say, internal process point of view was that the qualified person, QA, at the European manufacturing site, which was producing the bulk, so again, the Czech manufacturing site, they refused to release the batch which was produced from Czech Republic to United Arab Emirates because they didn't see any marketing authorization. It was against some internal policy that only after MA is issued, then you can dispatch the batch from the site. And we were trying to explain that this is actually legally acceptable, possible. There is no risk of compliance, etc. And it took also really some time to convince internally. So the lesson learned from that is that if you have this kind of specific launch management possibilities in these countries, try to explore this in advance and try to do some alignment within the company with all the key stakeholders, including QA, QC, and industrial affairs, so that you're not wasting time uselessly on the topics which you can prevent. Okay, so that was one example for the launch in UAE. And now I'm getting to Russia. So here, what you can see for the Russian generic customization projects and the local bioequivalence study requirements, you may have noticed that in Russia, starting from 2021, a new registration procedure is in place called EAEU procedure. where for all new submission you need to go with this procedure. It's like an analogy to decentralized procedure in Europe. Pretty much they use the same principle. Prior to that, you are always submitting nationally in Russia through national procedure. And what our regulatory colleagues inform us about is that because typically for all the Russian customization projects, we were conducting local bioequivalence on local healthy volunteers. That was pretty much mandatory for Russian registration and launch. So basically a major, I would say, customization activity in terms of project. And here we were told that if the study was conducted in Europe before 2016, we could actually use the data from Europe, and we would not need to conduct a local bioequivalence study. So here, actually, we were me as a project manager, I was assessing the situation for 3 projects or 3 products, ABC, let's call them ABC, where the bioequivalence study in Europe, where we typically start with the launch, was done in 2015 or 2019, 2018, and there were various, let's say, type of development costs per study, of course, depending on the molecule. So for the first product A, the B study costs were almost 1 million euros. So I would say quite significant. And of course, wherever you can, you just try to save money during your development, right? Because it impacts the MPV and the business case, even though Russia is a big country, so they are typically bigger sales. But no one in the company would be against saving some money, right? As we know. So we were supposed to assess whether we could go without local B study, and we said that since these were the, let's say, targeted launch dates, depending on the IP situation, what kind of patent limitations we are facing. So it was either 23 or 24. And here in this first case, we said that, well, since the study in Europe was going to be before 2015, so it means that there's a high chance that we could get a waiver of the local bioequivalence study, and yet also the study costs were pretty high. And we were in the situation that if we were to conduct a local bioequivalence study, we would actually not have much time for the registration and the launch. So we said that we will use the dossier as it is, and we will not invest into the B study. In the second case, actually, the B study in Europe was done already in 2019. The study cost was 300k euros, so we need to actually act quickly and decide that, yeah, we will not take the risk because probably Russian health authority would not accept the data from Europe. So we did the European study, and in case of the third project, the costs were relatively high, also 700k euro, and we are about to launch in 2024. So we had pretty enough time to conduct a study, to register a product, and also the European B study was done in 2018. So probably we would be either in the position to conduct a bioequivalence study locally. So this, if you learn during the registration process, then you typically launch later than you would like to, so you want to avoid the situation. Or there was some comment that we could face at least a GCP inspection, which we didn't want to take the risk because we don't know what it meant, how long it could take, etc. For us, it was more important to launch on Patex, just like any other generic. So that was, let's say, the exercise that we as the project managers had to go over. And just to illustrate the requirements in Russia in terms of clinical studies. Then a few examples of how we learned what could be prevented for the next time for launching the products in Russia. Scale up. I'm happy to hear I was happy to hear actually during the Y Summits conference early this year that our colleagues in Sandoz have been facing the same problem with scaling up during the launch preparation, because this is typically a very painful thing. During the development part of the project, you typically produce batches of smaller size, like pilot scales, which are cheaper. And then you go with 6 months stable data for the submission of the dossier. And then the larger scale, let's say the validation batches, are done during the registration, and use then for the launch. But the issue was that we learned that the process was not robust enough for the larger scale. At the pilot scale, everything was fine, but not on the larger scale, and we were out of specification. So it actually led to changes in the formulation. We had to do some changes in the composition and manufacturing process, which itself led to some delay. Then you, of course, had to wait for some stability data, and then you even had to submit some pre-launch variation. So it took us almost 8 months of a launch delay, which was a little bit painful because it was an important launch. So scale up, be careful about that. If it's an important product for Russia or for any other country, it's a good idea to think of producing these bigger scale batch earlier, I would say. When it comes to IA readiness for launch, so typically, and I'm now speaking about mostly on the industrial, let's say, side of the launch. So I will not be getting into the marketing part of the launch, but here, basically, you need to order API and packaging material well in advance. However, what you can do if you really want to speed up the launch is to order at least the foil for the product even before the MA is issued, because typically I think most of the companies do it this way. From quality perspective, you wait until the marketing authorization in the country is granted, and then you order the packaging material and you start producing batches, and then you dispatch the goods. But here you can do it in advance because typically foil has the longest lead time, around 6 weeks, and you can save these 6 weeks because even if you get the MA, typically it doesn't change anything on the foil. It can change the outer pack if there is a registration number. I think there it can impact the packaging material, so you need to watch out. But at least for the foil, you can save some time, and this is what we did. Yeah, what you can take as a risk, what risk you can expect is that there could be some last-minute changes from the deficiency letter from health authorities at the very last moment. But again, it should concern the packaging material. Typically, you will change nothing on the blister or on the foil. But in the leaflet, of course, something can happen, or they can even, if something changes on the CEP and you need to order a new API, then you are in trouble. But it's about the pros and cons. What is more important for you? The destruction costs, typically they are not very high, or to save time, like a couple of weeks if they are competitors. So this is what you need to consider. And one little example on the pack sizes, what happened to us, but these misunderstandings can happen in any company, I would say. So of course, you need to ensure that all the concerned types of pack sizes, including the number of units in each blister, need to be in line with the registered dossier. What happened to us is that local supply chain and manufacturing sites during the GMD creation of relevant SKUs consider different type of pack sizes. So supply chain actually ordered 30 tablets, so 3 blisters with 10 tablets, whereas RA registered and they preferred to have commercial colleagues to have 28 tablets, so only 2 blisters with 14 tablets. Because the material was already ordered, so there were proposals to, when you had these 30 tablets instead of 28, to keep 2 cells in the blister empty and to mark these somehow, but that was somehow rejected by marketing, that it would not be very attractive because patients could raise some complaints that 2 tablets are missing or so. So again, we had to order new blisters, which delayed us for 6 weeks, and then to submit pre-launch variation for 1 month. This is something which was totally preventable. It was a miscommunication at local level. We weren't aware at global. And I mean, another 2 months of a delay for generic launches, again, it can be a big deal. It can be a decision-making point. So better to avoid this. So that was another example. And I think we are at the end now. I don't know how much left. We have 40 minutes left. So I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions if you have some.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Feel free to stop sharing so then we can have a look at you and some other participants if they would like to join us with the video as well. But yeah, thank you again. This was really wonderful and fruitful, even for me. You know, as I say, I do not come from the pharmaceutical background or anything like that, but to listen to this, especially as, you know, all the examples that you were sharing from the case studies, really, it's always wonderful to hear from me because it really is from the practical point of view. Yeah, but so far we don't have any questions. I'm not sure if I'm going to give everyone a little bit of a chance, and, you know, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like. Oh, I can see someone.
I would like, yeah.
Hi, Gabriel. Hi, good to see you. Please start a discussion.
Okay, good. So thanks, Michael, for your presentation. It was very, let's say, nice presentation, especially for me. I'm talking from Brazil. Okay, I'm also a global project manager for development projects, but my focus is Latin America market. You know, I developed in Brazil for registration in Brazil, and also we export some dossiers to Latin America, or we bring some products from Europe, from our global development centers to host in Latin America. So it was nice to have some experience regarding Middle East, which, to be honest, I have heard about it. So it's nice to see how different are, okay, or can be, at least the requirements, so on. And it was nice for me to hear that for some of these specific requirements is related for the culture, right? For the local culture of the Middle East countries, which is, I can imagine, completely different from ourselves.
Yeah, and this would not be valid for Latin America, I would say, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, when you mentioned has pork-free components, it's something which is new, yeah. And also the example from Tiva API, can you imagine how this can impact the Tiva business, right? Because they are located in the Middle East. So let's say their key, partner should be the Middle East countries, and they have boycott them. So it's tricky to face this situation, right? Even located in the same region, you are not able, or due to cultural reasons, religion reasons, whatever, you're not able to do some kind of business.
Yeah, that's very interesting, but still, you know, they somehow made it because they are still top one generic company, right? Even without
exactly
having major business in the Middle East, which is surprising. Yeah. But as I said, you know, in some countries, it's really changing. In UAE, I don't know if Qatar or other countries would also change their view on Tiva. I think in countries like Tiva, of course, Iran, etc., it's no doubt that they would still boycott Tiva or anything coming from Israel. But in some countries, it's changing. I know.
Okay, at least it's changing this trend. At least from them would be nice. Okay, good. And one of my questions is for you regarding the regulatory timelines in the Middle East countries, because this for sure impacts the launch planning, right? I'll give the example for Brazil. I don't know if you manage products for Latin America or for Brazil. Maybe you can give some
in Brazil, we actually do have some manufacturing sites in Brazil and also in Colombia. So I have a comparison, but I'm not such an expert on Latin America like for other regions.
Yeah, but the point is that at least here in Brazil, our, let's say, health authority and visa, it's hard to predict by when you submit a dossier. It will be hard to predict by when the dossier will be reviewed, when you're going to receive the deficiency letter. It's completely different from European and the US approach. Because in Europe, if I'm not wrong, you know exactly by when the dossier will be reviewed, by when you're going to receive the deficiency letter. You can more or less accurate the MA and the launch as well. In Brazil, it's very hard to predict, as I said. At least we can predict when you're going to submit the dossier, but afterwards it's constantly follow up with a visa, with the teams. What about the market authorization? No, I received a deficiency letter. I'm answering maybe in 4 weeks, maybe in 3 months, and so on. So this is something which really impacts our, let's say, launch planning. Because you mentioned maybe you can order the API. Okay, but if it's a kind of investment, but you know, if the API shelf life is not big enough, maybe you can order the API in advance, but then Visa will take time to review your dossier and you receive many deficiency letters. And at the end, you may also lose your API due to it's already expired. So for us, it's a big challenge. So I'd like to know from the Middle East countries, how is this regulatory timelines? They are, let's say, more accurate as in Europe, or no, you also have this rich variance regarding prediction of MA and launch as well? Yeah.
No way, Gabriel, from my experience, but again, I have now moved to, let's say, different type of projects where I'm leading in Sanofi, so I'm no longer involved in generics. But what I remember 2-3 years back, it was really unpredictable. I think it was even worse than in Brazil or other countries. They are not like very concrete timelines. It also depends on the level of good relationships with health authorities, which I was amazed about because I was traveling to Dubai to see how our colleagues working and what sometimes they were able to convince the health authority about. It was amazing, yeah, because they went there in person. I have many, let's say, nice examples, which we don't have time for, but sometimes, especially, it depends also on the type of distributor. I think it's not relevant for Brazil. There's a distributor who acts on behalf of the company and goes to health authority, and it depends how good he is. Like these kind of things determine the timeline. So
the relationship,
course,
the lobby behind, you have to do it with them.
Lobby, and also I was always trying to get some estimates from our regulatory colleagues, and of course we are having 12 months, and it was 16 months and 20 months. You were never able to expect, and then you had something very surprising, deficiency letter like this, like explain us relationships between the parties involved in the manufacturing flow. So you would expect, okay, we'll explain one deficiency letter. No, it took maybe 3 times going there, explaining what is the relationship between Czech, Greek, Cyprus, UAE, and UK entity. They weren't able to figure it out. So it's not predictable. That's my conclusion.
Yeah, so
unfortunately, Saudi is more organized. I think Saudi is more organized, but even them, they are very strict. For instance, how much of a deadline you have for a deficiency letter. You cannot go if you have like 60 days. You just need to really respond 60 days, and then you can even turn down the whole application. So they're very strict, but it doesn't give you any guarantee that you will really register in 2 years' time as you expected. It can go beyond that.
Yeah, I believe it's one of the challenges, right, to work with this kind of, let's say, no control environment, especially from the market unit, which always requires sales, let's say, sales projection, budget. And so when you're going to have the approval, the launch, so it's estimation.
You keep updating your global project plan. Yeah, this is our day-to-day job, of course.
Yeah. Yes, okay.
That's right.
I don't know if there's any other person who'd like to do any questions.
I
have another one, but
thank you very much, Gabriel, for this is really exactly what we want. We really want people to participate, and we're all human, and no one needs to be shy. And this is the aim to have professionals like you two and like everyone else joining us to really share and exchange ideas and questions. So yeah, there's no one else so far. Everyone else, please feel free to join the discussion if you'd like. And if you've got, Gabriel, got any questions, go away, ask away.
Okay, good. No, I don't know if we're allowed to talk because sometimes it's the company's strategy, but you mentioned Turkey, to believe that to get, let's say, the registration is to produce locally, right? But how do you do usually with the development of the product? Do you develop abroad in, let's say, in one of your, let's say, global development center, and afterwards transfer the methodology, transfer the manufacturing process locally to the local production unit, or do you do development there if they are supported? How, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but how are you going to do usually if this, to set up the strategy of the project?
So our strategy in Sanofi was, first of all, it's not that you would not be able to register the product if it's imported. I don't want to, let's say something wrong, but the problem is that
no, I understood the point, but you have, let's say, it's more easier, or if you
it's easier, and actually you receive this priority. And if there is a generic which is produced locally, and then you come with an imported product, you will need to wait for the inspection, and then of course you will not be the first generic, and then your commercial colleagues will say, well, if I'm the second or third generic, it makes no sense to go with this product.
Not worth it anymore.
So it is possible, but then it's, let's say, not very profitable. And what we did is that we even had the development center in Turkey. Now it actually is more of a manufacturing facility unit than development center. But we were actually both developing products in Europe and then transferring the technology to our manufacturing site located in Lüleburgaz in Sanofi. But there are also products which were developed in Turkey, produced also for local manufacturing, and then even exported from Turkey to Europe and other countries.
Then, make around, okay.
Like both ways. Then actually the only disadvantage is that if you go to European Union, you need to have a European releasing site. So you couldn't, let's say, dispatch the goods directly from Turkey. We were either releasing it from Romania or from Czech Republic to the other markets. That was the only, but it was both ways actually.
Okay, and so it depends. The strategy really depends on the
it depends, yeah.
Requirements.
Sometimes even patent-wise, you know. Sometimes we were developing the products in Goa, in India, for some reason, because there were some patents elsewhere. So it was very individually based, but typically, you know, the development center for Turkey, it's really about the manufacturing. So what matters is to have the bulk being manufactured, still release, and this needs to be done locally. Where you develop the product, it doesn't mind.
Okay, good, thanks. Yeah, it's the same, because as I said, I also use with global project management and global projects. So usually the big companies prefer to, let's say, specialize some development centers, right, to develop for the whole world target.
Yeah.
And they adapt the dossiers, and depends on where you're going to submit it.
It's pretty much common, I would say, that you have 1-2 development center and then multiple manufacturing sites. For instance, in Algeria, I haven't spoken about it, but also Algeria pretty much demands to have local manufacturing. So you just import. Typically, they prefer to have bulk already manufactured in the country. But if there is no other way, and you explain, you can do it also from Europe. But they don't expect you to have it developed in the country. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabriel. This is really wonderful. And if anyone else, if you've got any questions, and you know, we're actually at the end of the session, at the webinar. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to ask away publicly the platform. That's why it's there for. Or Michal is actually there as the member. So go and sign up if you haven't already. And I'm sure he will be able to answer anything else that you've got happening in your mind and in your heart. Yeah, feel free to post it publicly. Maybe other professionals can help as well. This is not the end of a discussion, so you know, carry it on the platform as well if you'd like. So if there is not anyone else who would like to ask anything, we might as well just say goodbye. And you know, this was a really wonderful session, I must say. It always is, and we've got such different speakers, and I'm hoping that everyone will find what they're looking for at the webinars. So yeah, thank you everyone. And oh yeah, sorry, there was a question. It's a chat. David Taylor says, very informative. Thank you, Michal.
You're welcome, David.
Thank you. This is actually, this is all being recorded, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel, Y Summits, like every other online webinar that we've had so far and that we will be having. And I will share that at the platform as well, so everyone is informed. But I'm not sure if you'd like to, Michal, if you'd like to say anything else before we sign off.
No, as you just said, Katie, feel free to reach out to me if you would have any other additional questions, you know, on the launch management. I would be interested to exchange more ideas, just like with Gabriel, to share some experience in other territories. So feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you again. Yeah, you know, reach out to me, reach out to Michal. There is the PPM workout platform. Everyone is there. There are more than 270 members, I think, which is actually really wonderful. So many experts and many professionals who are willing to help, I'm sure. So don't be shy. And I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. It was really wonderful. And we've got another 3 webinars this week, and then another 2 weeks coming up before you will, you know, before the conference PPM Summer Talks will end. So yeah, enjoy everyone. Peter is saying thank you very much, Michal. So it's a lovely comment. Yeah, that's actually our friend, I'm pretty sure from Czech Republic as well, right? Peter? I'm not sure, maybe I'm mistaken. Yeah, so thank you everyone. Oh, Slovakia, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. He said Slovakia, okay. I'm just getting into, knowing everyone. So sorry for everyone. But yeah, I would just like to say thank you again for joining us. It will be live tonight, Michal's webinar. So feel free to share it, ask questions, and I'll be here again tomorrow with another wonderful presentation. We actually got 3 people joining us tomorrow. And I will be posting it on our LinkedIn as well too, so you're all informed about what's happening. So yeah, have a lovely evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us, Michal and everyone else. It was a pleasure as always, and I will see you very soon. And keep the questions coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.